It was late when I arrived at the restaurant's door. My name is Detective Pierce. People often think my work is about chasing criminals, but in truth, what I face most are things others refuse to believe in. Where the world sees coincidence or bad luck, I see traces of something that hides in the dark. Tonight, I wasn't here to investigate anything. My old friend, Marcus Deverell, had invited me to his brand new restaurant. He wanted to boast about the grand opening, to show me the future of fine dining, as he put it. But the moment I stepped closer to the building, I felt it. That subtle chill crawling under the skin, the kind of warning I've learned never to ignore. The restaurant was set inside an old Victorian house with towering windows, heavy curtains, and the weary look of a place that had witnessed too much. Its name was painted in pale letters above the entrance. La lumière éteinte, the extinguished light. Strange, unsettling, and terribly inappropriate for a restaurant. But Marcus always had a flair for the dramatic. Inside, the atmosphere felt wrong. The chandelier overhead flickered with a weak glow, failing to push back the shadows. Candles on the tables gave off more smoke than light, and the air felt heavy, oppressive, as though laughter itself was forbidden here. Marcus greeted me, his handshake too firm, his smile a little too strained. "Pierce, you came. Honestly, I wasn't sure you would." His relief sounded almost desperate, as if I were not just a guest but his last hope. He led me to a table at the far end of the dining room, directly across from a massive mirror that stretched across the wall. I've never trusted mirrors. They reflect more than they should. I ordered a glass of wine and watched. The patrons spoke in hushed voices, their eyes sunken, their expressions blank. The waiters moved like shadows, their faces pale, almost mask-like. When one placed the glass before me, I noticed his fingers trembling. Beneath his nails was something dark, reddish. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Do you understand now why I called you here? At first, I thought it was my nerves, exhaustion, but no. There's something here, Pierce. Something alive. And it won't let me go." Just then, a sound rippled through the hall, a long, drawn-out sigh that seemed to come from nowhere, yet everywhere at once. The chandelier flickered violently and went out. For a second, the entire room was consumed by darkness. And then, silence. No one screamed, no one moved. Every guest sat frozen, staring at the great mirror on the wall. I turned. There, in the reflection, something shifted. A hunched figure, tall and crooked, with arms too long, like spiders' legs, gliding not in the room but inside the mirror itself. When the light returned, the figure was gone. But the air stayed heavy, suffocating, and the taste of iron clung to my tongue. I took a sip of the wine, and it didn't taste of grapes. It tasted like blood. And I knew my night was only beginning. The wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered across the floor. Not a single guest reacted. Not a glance, not a word. They all sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the mirror, as if their souls were chained to it. I leaned closer to Marcus, whispering, "Tell me exactly what you've seen." His face had gone pale, his lips trembling. "It started 3 nights ago. After closing, I stayed late to check the accounts. Then I heard it. A whisper, like someone speaking my name from across the hall. But no one was there. When I turned toward the mirror, I saw..." His voice broke, his eyes darting toward the glass. "I saw myself, Pierce. But it wasn't me. Its smile was too wide, too sharp. And it didn't stop smiling. Even when I turned away, I could feel it grinning." A scream tore through the restaurant. High-pitched, shrill, coming from the kitchen. Every patron turned their heads in unison toward the sound. Their movements were not human. They were too synchronized, like marionettes pulled by one hand. I pushed my chair back, my instincts taking over, and strode toward the kitchen. The doors swung open, releasing a suffocating wave of rot and heat. Inside, the room was chaos. Pots clattered on the ground. The metallic smell of blood overpowered the aroma of cooked meat. A chef stood frozen in front of the cutting table, his back stiff, his knife still pressed against the chopping board. His hands were drenched in crimson. "Sir?" I called, stepping closer. He turned slowly. His face was blank, void of expression, except for his mouth. His lips were moving, forming silent words. I strained to listen. "We see you." The lights in the kitchen flickered violently. For a heartbeat, I saw something standing behind him, a towering, skeletal figure draped in a shroud of black. Its head scraped the ceiling, its hollow eyes burning with pale light. And then the light snapped back, and it was gone. The chef dropped the knife and collapsed, convulsing on the floor. I knelt beside him, checking his pulse. Still alive, but his skin was ice cold, his veins darkening beneath the surface as if something poisoned him from within. Marcus rushed in behind me. "Pierce, we need to leave, now. Whatever it is, it's in the walls, in the air, this place is cursed." I stood, staring back through the swinging doors into the dining room. The guests hadn't moved. They sat in their chairs, their gazes locked on the mirror. Only this time, they weren't reflected correctly. Some faces were smiling in the glass while their real counterparts sat stone-faced. Others blinked in the reflection, though their real eyes remained open and unblinking. One guest's reflection turned its head toward me, though the man at the table did not move an inch. It was then I realized, the people in the dining room were no longer watching the mirror. The mirror was watching them. And now, it was watching me. The longer I stared into that mirror, the colder the air became. A frost spread along its surface, crawling outward like veins of ice, though the room itself remained warm. I forced myself to look away, but even then, I could feel it pulling at me, like a hand gripping the back of my neck, demanding I return my gaze. One of the guests finally stood up. A middle-aged man in a black suit, eyes empty, limbs stiff. He shuffled forward until he stood only a foot from the glass. Then, without hesitation, he pressed his forehead against the surface. A crack echoed. His reflection began to move on its own. It smiled, wide, unnatural, teeth bared in grotesque delight, while the real man stood motionless, expression blank. The reflection raised its hand and touched the glass. The mirror rippled like water. And then, in a single, jerking motion, the man was yanked inside. His body folded unnaturally, limbs contorting as if sucked into liquid. The mirror swallowed him whole. The guests didn't scream. They didn't react at all. Only I and Marcus had seen it for what it was. I grabbed Marcus by the arm. "Tell me the truth. Where did that mirror come from?" He swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "It was a gift, left at our doorstep months ago. No sender, no note. Just there. We thought it was decoration. But ever since then, strange things, Pierce. Employees missing, guests who never checked out. And the whispers, always the whispers, telling me to look deeper, to feed it." The lights dimmed until only the mirror glowed faintly, as if alive. The guests began to rise from their chairs in perfect unison, every movement choreographed. They turned toward me, their eyes glazed white. The sound of whispers filled the air, dozens of voices speaking in unison, rising and falling like the tide. The words made my skin crawl. "Join us. Join us. Join us." Suddenly, one of the women lunged forward, her jaw unhinging far wider than humanly possible. Her scream was not a sound but a wave of pure agony, echoing in my skull. I staggered back, gripping the edge of a table. Her reflection, however, didn't scream. It only smiled calmly, as though savoring my fear. I reached inside my coat, my fingers brushing against the small silver crucifix I carried from my father. It wasn't that I believed it would save me. Faith had never been my weapon, but symbols sometimes carry weight. Sometimes, evil fears belief more than bullets. The whispers faltered. The guests froze mid-step, their mouths hanging open. For the first time, I felt a sliver of control. "Marcus," I said, my voice low but steady, "we're not dealing with ghosts. This isn't possession. This thing, the mirror, it's a doorway. And whoever walks through, doesn't come back the same." The reflection of the dining hall flickered violently, glitching like broken film. One by one, the guests in the glass turned their heads toward me, their movements sharp and mechanical. And then they all began to smile. The mirror pulsed with light, and I realized the next victim it wanted was me. The mirror pulsed again, its surface warping like liquid mercury. I felt a force tugging at me, an invisible current dragging me toward it. My boots scraped across the floor as I fought to stay anchored. The guests, their faces blank and pale, advanced slowly in unison, closing the circle around me. "Marcus!" I shouted. "If you know anything else, now is the time." He trembled, sweat rolling down his temple. "I tried to destroy it once. Hammer, fire, even buried it underground. But it always came back, always reappeared in the dining hall. Like it wanted to stay here." That was enough to confirm my fear. It wasn't just a cursed object. It was a parasite, feeding on the people it consumed. The pull grew stronger. My reflection in the glass broke free of my movements. It raised its hand while mine stayed still. Its eyes glowed with a dull crimson light. I reached for the silver crucifix in my pocket, clutching it so hard the edges bit into my palm. "You want me?" I growled under my breath. "Then take me. But you'll choke on it." I hurled the crucifix directly at the mirror. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then the glass shrieked. The sound was not physical. It ripped through my skull, shaking my vision, flooding my ears with static. The surface spiderwebbed with cracks, bleeding black liquid like ink spilling across the floor. The guest collapsed instantly, gasping as though released from a trance. Marcus fell to his knees, sobbing in relief. But it wasn't over. The mirror's surface shattered inward, and from the shards stepped something wrong, my reflection, but distorted. Taller, its skin pale as ash, its smile carved too wide. It was me, and not me. "Pierce," it whispered in my own voice. "You can't fight what you are. You belong to me." It lunged. I tackled it to the ground, the two of us grappling among broken glass. Its strength was inhuman, every movement jerky and unnatural, but it underestimated one thing: I knew how I fought. I drove a shard of the mirror straight through its throat. It let out a scream so sharp it rattled the chandeliers, then burst into a cloud of ash that dissipated instantly. The remaining shards of the mirror crumbled into dust, leaving nothing but silence. Marcus crawled to his feet, his face pale. "Is it over?" I steadied my breath, brushing glass off my coat. "For now. But objects like that don't just exist. Someone made it. Someone sent it. That means there's a bigger hand at play." He nodded shakily, his relief mixing with fear. I adjusted my tie, my voice steady again. "Detective Pierce. And next time, Marcus, don't accept gifts you can't explain." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, the night air outside heavy with rain. But as I stepped into the dark street, I caught a glimpse of a shop window across the road. For a fraction of a second, My reflection smiled back at me. And then it was gone. The case was closed. But I knew the war was only beginning.